Welcome to Mind, Muscle, and Metabolism, the Jade Teta podcast. Here you get the in-depth science and practical tools needed to change your body, optimize your health, and elevate your mindset. I'm Dr. Jade Teta, and here is what I want you to know. You are different. You are as unique on the inside chemically as you are on the outside physically. And those differences matter. They matter because there is only one rule to achieving optimal health, fitness, and body change. That rule: do what works for you. My goal is to help you understand exactly how. I'm so excited you're here. Your transformation starts right now. Okay, guys, welcome to the podcast today. This is episode 6 of the Jade Teta podcast. Today we are talking mindset stuff, very important mindset stuff, a question that I get asked very frequently, not so much in the health and fitness work that I do, but really in the coaching stuff that I do. I've been spending most of my time the last few years really deep in the life coaching world, dealing with romantic loss, dealing with people trying to restart careers, business coaching, difficulty with family, managing finances, all of that kind of stuff falls under the rubric of life coaching. And of course, vitality and physical health is huge. Looking good, feeling good, living longer. Obviously, all these things are very important for us in terms of our goal sets in life. We want health. We want connected, loving relationships. We want financial security. We want to be able to pursue our dreams and our creative pursuits and ideally make money from our passions. We want to be able to grow as people and become what I call a next level human, is the term that I use in my sister brand that I developed in the self-help, self-development part of the work that I do. And of course, we want support and stability and certainty. We humans are not islands unto ourselves. We require and evolved with what? Support systems around us, a social network, a tribe of individuals that we depended on and who depended on us. And what begins to happen as we pursue our dreams, our physical goals, our career, our growth potential as humans, our creative pursuits, is that we see very clearly that the people who are around us in our social sphere, in our social circles, really, really dramatically impact us. And actually, research has suggested for years that the people closest to us, the people we spend the most time with, we will tend to adopt their same mindsets. If they are victims who gossip and complain and blame, we are more likely to be victims who gossip and complain and blame. If they are high achievers financially, we will tend to be high achievers financially. If they are overweight and unhealthy, the people we surround ourselves with, then we will tend to be the same as they are, and vice versa. They impact us, we impact them. And so we need to be looking at our social circles as net negatives and net positives. Now, years ago, I developed a concept I called the social MVPs. And the whole idea of this exercise was to essentially act as if you were a Major League Baseball recruiter or an NFL recruiter or an NBA recruiter. In other words, a professional sports team recruiter. And you were trying to recruit a team that was going to take you to the championships, that was going to get you to the Super Bowl or the NHL or to the NHL Cup or whatever your respective favorite sports echelon is for the top team. And as a recruiter for your social circle, the idea was to recruit people who supported you in these different areas, especially in the areas that could impact you and your willpower battery, if we're talking about health and fitness, or your creative pursuits, or your financial pursuits, or your career-based pursuits. You know, we humans, right, we have the physical battery, the mental and emotional battery, and then sort of, the spiritual battery as well. We have many different ways to charge ourselves up or to drain ourselves, and we would like to be able to use people to grow us and charge us up. So I expanded this concept of social MVPs recently with my business partner, Danny Coleman, who works with me on the Next Level Human side of what I do. And we expanded it, and I'm going to share that with you today because it's so powerful for you to understand, Jade, how do I vet the people in my life, and what areas should I be working with, and then even how do I begin to change people? So here's what I want you to do. There's a PDF that goes along with this particular podcast. You can find that PDF on my website, jadeteta.com, under the blog/podcasts and under episode 6. And you can download that and look at it, but I'll explain it to you right here. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to draw a box, a square, and then you're going to draw a line straight down between that box to divide it into 2 columns, right? So now you have 2 columns, and now you're going to create 6 rows by drawing 6 horizontal lines through the 2 columns. So now you have 2 columns and 6 rows. So if you have a pen and paper and you can do this, then go ahead and do it along with us. However, if you're driving or you're listening to this somewhere else, that's okay. It will be clear to you in a second. In the upper part of this box, the first 2 boxes, right, because we have a column, 2 columns in the first row, we have your support system. And what I mean by this is these are the people who provide stability and certainty and the loyalty that we require as humans. Now, I happen to be so lucky in this because I am the youngest of 4 children. My 2 parents are still together. They are amazingly supportive. My siblings have been amazingly supportive financially and in my dreams and career-based and emotionally, and have been pretty wonderful with that. We're a big Italian family, so they're not always so much great in the vitality component. They can be enablers, and when I'm around them, I tend to eat a little bit worse, so that's maybe one downside to my family. But in general, they provide an amazing support system. I know that if I fell flat on my face, I have people who I could go to financially and for emotional support and for moral support. And so you want to think about, do I have a support system? Do I have people in my life who are supportive? This would be members of my tribe. They provide a net positive outcome for me. Or do I have people who are net negative in the support realm? In other words, I can't really rely on them. They're not great friends. They wouldn't be there for me financially. I can't rely on them morally for moral support and things like that. And this is what I call the empty audience. So there's 2 types of people in the support category. There's your tribe, right? Family. And family oftentimes is people you choose. So this might be very close friends, aunts and uncles, immediate family members. Your tribe is the people you choose, the family you choose, the people who got your back, the ride or die types. And then the empty audience, I call it the empty audience to, pay homage to the idea that social media is now here, and that we have all these people who are watching us and paying attention to what we do, but maybe not providing much moral support. And I got this term from Danny Coleman and Connor Coleman, who basically helped with some of the intellectual aspects of this model. So your empty audience is the people who are paying attention to you, or who you are paying attention to, and don't really provide any support at all. And so the idea is, in your support group, do you have one? Do you have a tribe? Or do you just have a big empty audience of people around you who really provide no support? Maybe they're watching you, maybe you're paying attention to them, but you have no real supportive bond or no real loyalty, right? So you can kind of think of this as very close ride or die friends and this sort of acquaintances or, people who you know in passing. You want to take an accounting of this. You want to see, do I have more people in my tribe or enough people in my tribe? Or do I have a lot of empty audience types? Next, you want to think about your dreams. Are there believers in your life, or are there haters in your life? Are there people who, when you tell them about your dreams and the things you want to accomplish, they go, absolutely, I'm so excited for you. I know you can do it. If you need any help, let me know. And they support you in action, in thought, in checking in with you, but they supporting you in your dreams? Or are they haters? That will never work. You can't do that. Why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense. You're looking foolish. These kinds of things, right? And so you want to be vetting the people in your life. Do you have more believers in your life or more haters in your life? Now, obviously, these people can come from many walks of life too, couldn't they? They could be people on Instagram and Facebook. This is how we socialize now. So it's very important that you include these. They can be very, very inspiring people who you don't even know, or haters and trolls who you don't even know, that can push you to chasing your dreams or keep you from getting your dreams. Of course, then there's the emotional realm. You can have people that act as counselors. Now, these could be counselors you actually hire, or these could be just good friends who counsel you emotionally and support you emotionally and bring you up emotionally and provide emotional directive and an emotional outlet, and are there for you at times when you need to express yourself or be open and vulnerable. And then there can be obviously emotional vampires, where anytime you have something to talk about, they make it all about them. They drain your emotional resources. When you leave them, it almost feels heavy, like you have been given 2 backpacks and a wet coat to wear. It just feels like, oh my God, I just got all my good emotion sucked out of me. And then, of course, there's the vitality component. There's going to be people around you when you're with them that you eat good, you feel great. There's going to be others that you don't, right? I know some people in my life, they're like, hey, Jay, do you want to go for a hike? Do you want to get a workout in? Do you want to, go get a nice salad? And there's other people who's like, hey, you want to go get margaritas? And do you want to go get a pizza? And, do you want to go to, this show, or these kinds of things that may be not benefiting me and helping me miss my workouts or miss eating well. Very important to understand. So I call these individuals coaches. Now, these people could be personal trainers that you hire. They could be life coaches that you hire. But really, these are people in your life, whether hired or good friends, social support, that are either making you more vital physically in your health or becoming enablers and enabling you in your negative habits that degrade your health. And then finally, there are sort of the growth aspects of things. You can have mentors and you can have victims. These are people who help you grow, expose you to different things, help you challenge your bias and your dogma. Oftentimes, some of these people, by the way, are friends. I actually call some of these people your worst best friends, who actually end up being some of your closest friends, because your worst best friends challenge you. They're not always easy, but when you think about them in terms of expanding you as a person and helping make you better, they tend to be mentors. Now, these could be hired mentors, or these could be people you listen to on a podcast or a blog or books you read. They don't have to be people who are in your sphere, but do you have mentors, or are you around victims, these people who complain and blame and make you do the same thing and force you to repeat negative habits over and over again and don't help you grow and get you in these negative cycles where you feel stuck all the time? Hey, it's Jade, and I want to tell you about a resource if you are somebody who is really into self-help, self-development, and self-actualization. This is a big part of the work that I do with individuals in the coaching realm as a life coach. I'm super passionate about it. We all know as humans, we need to be pushed mentally and emotionally to grow the same way we need to push ourselves in the gym to see benefits in health and fitness. If you are someone who wants to understand how to get a better support system, how to become more creative and more powerful in achieving your dreams, everything around romantic relationships and finance and all of these things, and taking responsibility for your own personal growth, breaking away from the victim mentality, really immersing yourself into the growth culture, I have a free course called the Elevate course that I would love for you to get a hold of. Go to drjade.com/elevate-course, drjade.com/elevate-course for the free course on self-actualization for you to get to your next level. Talk to you soon. And so this is what we need to do. We need to take an accounting of the people in our lives. Look at this as almost like a social battery. Do we have net positives or do we have net negatives? And so I'll give you a very quick way to do this activity. So once you write out this box, right, you have this box with 2 columns and 6 rows. Well, on the left-hand column, the first box is the tribe. 1 box down from that on the left-hand column is believers. Then 1 down from that is counselors, then coaches, then mentors. So on the left side of this box, in the positive column, you have the first row tribes, the second row believers who are believers in you, the third row counselors, the fourth row coaches, and the last row mentors. And then on the right side of the box, you have all your negative people. In the first row, it's empty audience. In the second row, it's haters, then vampires, enablers, and victims, positive and negative. So the tribe is the good part of this, and the empty audience is the bad part of this. The believers are good, the haters are bad. The counselors are good, the vampires bad. The coach is good, the enablers bad. The mentors boost you up, the victims falter and suppress your growth. So now what I want you to do once you have this box is you essentially now are going to fill this in. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down or think about the 20 individuals in your life, and it's probably a good idea to limit them to 20. You want at least 10, but preferably 20 because you really want to stretch. And these individuals are going to be people who occupy your social capital day in and day out. Okay, so for example, I woke up today and read from a book called The Daily Stoic, written by Ryan Holiday. I spent a lot of time with his materials. I know him in passing. I've done some coaching with Ryan, but we are not super close friends, and I certainly do not talk to him on a daily basis, but I am interacting with his work. So does he have a social influence on my social capital? Absolutely he does. Where would I put him? In the growth category, under mentors. He's certainly not a victim, but he is a mentor. So I would put Ryan Holiday there. Now, my mother and father, I don't talk to them every day, but they're on my mind all the time. They're some of my closest friends. So they fall into the category of my tribe. And they also fall into the category of believers, counselors, coaches, and mentors. As a matter of fact, my parents, being 2 of my best friends and amazing next level individuals, fill up my entire left side. And so people can occupy more than one place. Now, obviously, I have siblings. They are also my tribe because I do choose them, and they are a support system. I'm lucky in that. Not everyone has a family, an immediate family that is their tribe, but these are my not just my blood family, they are my chosen family as well. However, some of them, like my sister Jody, who I adore and is my personal assistant, actually. She's probably going to listen to this and get upset at me. Jody, I love you. But Jody is an enabler when it comes to food. So she falls into a negative category on one of mine because if I go over to her house, she wants to feed me cheese and wine and cookies and junk food. She knows I love Oreos, so she gets them for me. So she enables me. However, she's an amazing believer in me. So in that, she falls in the believer category. And she also, it falls in the tribe category. And she is also a counselor for me at times as well. My brothers Chemo and Keone, sometimes they end up in sort of the negative category in some areas and positive in others. I have people who I follow on social media. And those individuals, some of them fall into the negative category, some of them into the positive category, but I follow them closely enough and they occupy my mind and my social capital on enough basis that they do fit into my 20. I have some of my best friends like Gary, my business partner, Danny Coleman, my business partner. They also either go positive or negative. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking these 20 individuals, some of them very close friends and family, some of them people I don't even know who I interact with on social media, and I'm writing down all the people who I have social capital with. I'll share something with you that's a little bit embarrassing for me, but you'll all get it because we've all been there before. But when I was going through some of my romantic upset, through my divorce, and I had a woman that I was also involved with, I would spend time looking at one of the people who she was supposedly dating, right? We've all done this kind of stuff before. And during that particular time, if I was doing that on a regular basis, which I was for a few weeks there, that person, even though I don't know him, would occupy my social capital for a little while, right? And then I would have to place him in this place where was having him occupy my social capital a net negative for me or a net positive for me. And by the way, it says nothing about this individual's personality or how great of a person they are. I'm sure, and they seem to be an amazing person and a good guy. So it has nothing to do with that. It's just that my social capital around this was being occupied. My social battery was being either charged or drained by me holding this social influence in my head. And so what we are doing is we are sometimes including people in this 20 who we don't even interact with. Sometimes it's our boss who we're not great friends with, but we have to deal with them, or coworkers that we have to deal with. Anybody who you spend time holding them in your psychological space socially, your social space in your brain on a daily or weekly basis could end up in here. And this could also be influencers, bloggers, podcasters, and authors. Once you have your 20 people, what I want you to do is I want you to go through each one of those people and assign them to as many different boxes as you can. Maybe they are both a believer at times and a hater at times. Fine. So I certainly have that with some of my brothers. Sometimes they can be believers in my dreams, and other times it's just like, Jade, you're crazy. You'll never do that. That's ridiculous. And they could be haters at times. So they could fall into different categories. The whole point of this exercise is what you are essentially doing is once you've written down these 20 people, and once you have filled them into the particular boxes, you now have clear patterns emerging. On the plus side, are you loaded up with lots of positives and net positives, or are you completely overloaded on the other side of net negatives? Are you weak in positives or weak in negatives? You want to obviously be loaded up in positives with very little negatives. And so if we did this correctly, you would have as many people, if you had a really good tribe and were paying very close attention to your social sort of team all the way through, your supporters, your dreamers, your emotions, your vitality, your growth, you should be net positive in general. Are you or are you not? And then, of course, you want to look and be like, well, if you don't feel supported, maybe it's because you actually have more people in the negative empty audience category versus people in your tribe. Maybe you feel lonely because you look at it and you're like, none of these people are actually my tribe members. Yes, they're family. Yes, they're acquaintances, but I have no real tribe members. Yes, they're old friends, maybe from college or high school that I still talk to on a regular basis, but they don't share my values. So maybe you have no tribe. That's going to be very interesting for you to understand. Are there more haters in your life? Are there more believers? Really quickly, not only are you going to see net positive and net negative overall, but you're going to see how people can be net negative or net positive. And what I would say is that if you have an individual who hits the negative side 3 or more times, that is a net negative person, and you're either going to have to work on changing them and working to, basically get them on your team, or getting them out of your social circle. Now, if you have very few positive sides, no mentors, no coaches, no counselors, whether they be hired or friends, maybe you need to look at hiring someone or recruiting friends or showing up in places that are going to support you. This is what's important. Now, I don't want to belabor this point. You can go to the website, jadeteta.com, click on blog/podcast, go to episode number 6, and you basically have a situation where you can do this exercise and see the diagram in person. But I want to say one more thing here, because in the end, this is about doing what? In the end, you're going to have an accounting now of your social battery. And you're going to see, am I charged socially or am I drained socially? And who are the drainers and who are the chargers? And what drainers do I need to give away and get out of my system? And what people do I need to recruit to be chargers in my system? And then there's going to be one final thing I want to talk about here, because you are going to have some people who you would prefer, and these would be people like old friends, significant others, family members, who end up in this negative category, they end up net negative, who you would prefer to get them on your team. So how do you change an individual who's a net negative and recruit them into the more positive sides? How do you get an enabler to be more of a coach? How do you get a victim type mentality person in your life to be a mentor to you and move them into that category? How do you get haters to be believers? How do you get vampires to be counselors? How do you get sort of someone who's an empty audience and not really being, involved in your support system, your tribe, to move over into that? Well, it's very simple, and it basically works like this. The last thing you want to do, and I'll use washing dishes as an example. Let's say you have a friend or a significant other who does not ever wash the dishes, and you dramatically need them and want them to wash the dishes because it impacts you to have negative dishes. It drains your social battery, and it drains you physically and mentally and emotionally when you see dishes in the sink. Well, the usual approach is telling the person, you never wash the dishes. How come you don't wash the dishes? I need you to wash the dishes, and you never do. You're a messy person. Please help me. You never help me, right? Isn't that the normal approach? Well, people live by stories, and they have a story in their head, and then they listen also and are impacted by the story that you have in your head about them. So if you're telling them the story, they don't wash the dishes, and they are a messy person, and they never help you, you're simply perpetuating that story, aren't you? You're perpetuating a story of they don't do X, Y, Z. What you really want to do is perpetuating a story and planting a story of them being helpful for you. Humans are interesting. They're very much like dogs in a sense. We now know that usually dogs will respond better if you give them a treat versus the stick. So it's the carrot versus the stick situation. What works better? Oftentimes the carrot does. And so rather than always giving someone the stick, you really want to give them the carrot. How do you do that? Well, when it comes to maybe washing the dishes, if you see them even pick one cup up and move it 2 inches in the direction of the sink, whenever you see them do something that's even in the direction of the thing that you would like them to do, what you want to do is you want to give them that. You want to say, oh my God, thank you so much for helping out with the dishes. It always makes me feel so good when you help me do the dishes, and give them some kind of new story. Thank you so much for helping with that. It means a lot. And what that begins to do is change their story about how they behave with you in their own head. And slowly but surely, you could potentially move them in the right direction. This is how you do that. But does that always work? And when is it time to just be like, this just is never going to work? Well, that's where boundaries come in. You have to have very clear boundaries of like, hey, okay, this is not the kind of person who's going to move in my direction. But many people, by using that trick, telling them they are something that you want them to be before they're even that thing, without them even knowing it, is hugely powerful. Right? Hugely powerful. I did this with a friend of mine who was having very difficult time with their parents, saying their parents weren't supportive. And I said, well, why don't you just pay attention to when they are supportive, and whenever they are, even just a little bit, tell them thank you so much for being so supportive. And what happened was, all of a sudden, whether or not it was the person's change of perspective, beginning to look for supportive things their family was saying, or whether their family began to become literally more supportive, and it was probably both, things turned around dramatically, and those people became net positives and chargers in their social battery. But there's 2 types of people in the world, right? We all know this. Sometimes you say to a person, hey, I couldn't have done that without you. And a good self-aware person will be like, well, of course you could. I was glad to help, but you could have done this without me. But thank you. And there's people who you could be like, look, I'm sorry for my part of this. And then they'll be like, yeah, I'm sorry for my part too. And then there's the type when you tell them, hey, I'm sorry for my part. They go, yeah, it was all your fault. And then there's types also who you're like, I couldn't have done it without you. And they're like, yeah, you're right. You couldn't have done it without you. You couldn't have done it without me, rather. And those people who are those types are the worst types, aren't they? They're the types of people that you want to get out of your social circle. If you have someone who's like, yeah, it was all your fault, and they don't take responsibility, or yeah, you're right, you did need me, you couldn't have done it without me, these are the people who you may consider needing to shut out of your life. Now, how does this work, right? Well, what that essentially means is if it's family members and things like that, and they tend to be haters, then you don't talk to them about your dreams anymore. Or if it's family members who are enablers and you're trying to eat good, then you avoid situations where you end up at their house eating Oreo cookies. And so this is ultimately up to you, your responsibility. But make no mistake about it, this isn't just important. This is huge. And so you need to get an accounting of your social battery so that you can thrive in your dreams, in your emotional pursuits and happiness, in your physical health, in your growth towards being a next level human, and in your creative potential, finances, and everything else. So I'm going to end right there today. I do not like to drone on in these podcasts. I hope that is helpful for you. Check out the resource for you at www.jadeteta.com. Click on blog/podcast. Go to episode 6, and you could get the show notes there and the download for this particular podcast. Thanks so much, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Pop it in real quick just to say thank you so much for your interest and support of the JadeTeta.com podcast. I am bringing back by popular demand the live Q&A calls I used to do back in the day, where you can get on live with me, ask your question directly, and have me answer it in full. Questions about thyroid and adrenal health, autoimmune disease, any health condition, belly fat, muscle building, performance enhancement, you name it, we are going to cover it on the Q&A podcast. If you'd like to be on these live Q&A calls with me and speak to me directly, all you need to do is become a patron of the podcast. You can go to www.patreon.com/Jade Teta. That's www.patreon.com/Jade Teta. Become a patron of the podcast. I would greatly appreciate your support, and you'll be able to access me live to answer all your questions in depth. Thanks again for your support. See you on the podcast.